Raider Nation, what's going on? You're watching the Raiders Report, and coming up here on today's show, we got mandatory minicamp news. On top of that, what's the latest going on around Josh Jacobs? I've had plenty of people during this live show and just on social media ask, was Josh in attendance today? Neil Farrell Jr., the hype train. If you want to hop on board, let's get it going. And then Divine Deablo, is he going to have a breakout season? I think after you get done watching this show, you're going to sit there and think to yourself, yeah, this guy might actually have a breakout season. So in terms of the mandatory minicamp news, if you don't know, today was the very first day for the Silver and Black, and it's going to run from June 6th to June 8th. They also still have plenty of other dates as well, like OTAs is June 12th to the June 15th. Training camp doesn't happen until late July. But according to reports, and actually one Raiders player I was talking to, I was like, so how'd it go today? He was like, honestly, it was kind of a chill day today at Raiders practice. But one of the top things that everybody was looking out for, was asking was Josh Jacobs going to show up to mandatory minicamp today? And the answer to that is simple. No. Why would he show up? He hasn't signed his franchise tag yet. So until he either signs that franchise tag or until the Las Vegas Raiders give him a brand new deal, Jacobs is not technically on the team. He is and he isn't at the same time. So no, he's not going to be there. He can't participate in any team activities in the meantime. However, this was kind of some of the good news. Jacobs was the only healthy absence at mandatory minicamp today. There was a report that came out that like Garoppolo wasn't there, / I think Michael Mayer, there was a few other players, Jacoby Myers. They just didn't practice. Every single person on the Raiders roster, 91 players, minus Josh Jacobs, was at least at the Raiders facility today. Not everyone practiced, but everyone was there besides Josh Jacobs, which to me sounds like everybody's buying in. So if you don't already know all this information, this is exactly why you subscribe to Raiders Report. Whether you're trying to stay up to date with the latest news and rumors, we got you covered. If you want analysis, we got that. Insider info coming up here in just a little bit. But we're also doing a competition here at Chat Sports. Which channel can get the most subs? So if you're not already subbed, let's show everyone here at Chat Sports and in the world why Raider Nation is built different. And if you are a new sub, we're giving shout-outs every single episode of the Raiders Report the entire month of June. So DBZ, Butters kept 169. Daniel and Alex, I salute you. And if you are one of our new subs or if you're one of our loyal watchers like Raider Reese, John Borelli, and Martin and Trivan, take that link that you see below, send it to some Raider fans, and tell them to join the fam. Let's now get into the latest here around Raiders defensive tackle Neil Farrell Jr. The latest reports have been that Farrell has looked very, very good this offseason. And today, it's come out that he is playing around 315 pounds. So Farrell wanted to slim up a little bit. He wanted to be faster. He wanted to be stronger. It sounds like he's a lot more motivated in year two, especially in the weight room. And the reason why this one really resonated with me was because before the 2023 NFL draft, okay, a Raiders player straight up told me that Farrell was lazy and that he was worried that he did not love football. If you hear lazy and doesn't love football, I mean, sirens should start going off in your head like this is probably not going to be very good. However, that exact same player told me in the last 24 hours that it's almost like the light bulb went on for Farrell, which then I thought was pretty interesting because today, and then even a little bit yesterday, some of the reports that came out were like, dude, this guy looks like a totally different human being out there. And you think about it, sometimes it can be an interesting adjustment period for players when you go from college. Yes, LSU is an incredible program, but you go from LSU and then you go to the NFL. Sometimes it can be a little bit of a reality check. So last season, Farrell played at 325 pounds. He was able to lose 10 pounds. Sounds like he also put on some muscle, so there's some good weight there, and now you're playing at 315. Bottom line is this: when you're a rookie, you might not have too many big expectations, but on this Raiders team, on this Raiders defense, you're playing at defensive tackle, and this defense needs to play good. Guess what? On the interior is one of the biggest team needs. Why? Because I've been scared to death. What happens if Neil Farrell Jr. doesn't step up? What happens if Matthew Butler doesn't step up? Well, it sounds like Neil Farrell Jr. stepped up, and it's good because in 158 snaps last season, he had an overall PFF grade of 35.5, a run defense grade of 39.3, a pass rushing grade of 50.8. And on today's show, we got some really interesting Josh McDaniels quotes around the young man, around the second-year defensive tackle out of LSU. But before I show you what the Raiders head coach had to say about number 92, today's show, shout out to Bird Dogs for sponsoring the Raiders Report. And if you haven't already gotten your hands on the best shorts and pants in the game, go to birddogs.com. Make sure that you use promo code chat. And don't worry, we're going to put the link for you guys down in the comments and in the description of today's show. So as someone who loves looking good and feeling confident, I'm excited to share my personal experience with our sponsor, Bird Dogs. These shorts and pants have truly changed the game for me. The fit is unparalleled. I have never felt better in any other clothing item. Not only do they make me look great, but they're so comfortable that I can wear them all day without feeling restricted. Plus, the stretchy fabric hugs my legs in all the right places. When it comes to pants, when it comes to shorts, I look for three things. I want something that fits me right, something that is comfortable, and something that has a lot of versatility. I mean, that's just plain and simple. I was on another Raiders show this over the weekend, shout out to Wasted and Graph, and they were making fun of me because of how good I looked in shorts. All I saw was a little bit of insecurity on their part because they can't rock Bird Dogs. Why? I don't skip leg day like they do. From a comfort standpoint, I want something where if I want to be able to run around with Chuck, I can do it. If I want to drop down and squat a little bit at the gym, I can do it. If I'm sitting here at work, I don't want my twigs and berries to be all together in one place. I want to have something that keeps me comfortable. And then the versatility. I can wear the shorts on date night. I can wear them hanging out with the guys. I can wear them to the gym. Hell, I wore them in Cancun for an entire weekend. So, Nation, if you're ready to elevate your wardrobe with Bird Dogs, click the link in the description and the comments or go to birddogs.com. And when you enter promo code chat, they're going to throw in a free Yeti-style tumbler with every order. Last week on Friday Happy Hour, Chugs and I were chugging beers out of the Bird Dogs tumblers. If you want to keep your drinks cold and then your coffee hot, Bird Dogs Yeti style tumbler is going to help you do that. One more time, birddogs.com, promo code chat. As promised, let's get into the quote here from Josh McDaniels on Neil Farrell Jr. It's not always easy depending on what room you're in as a rookie. He came back in really good shape. I think a lot of times you see these first-year guys, they go through their first year, and it's kind of a crash course on what requires of you physically, mentally, emotionally, and what kind of time it requires away from the building to be prepared to compete constantly at a high level at this level. Neil's done all of the right things. So when you had a player, right, and this has been something that we have talked about for months on this channel because back in April, Chugs and I talked about how some people told us that, hey, there's a lot of worry inside from that Raiders locker room around Neil Farrell Jr., around Matthew Butler, and the fact that the Raiders were worried about both of those players entering the 2023 NFL Draft. It shows you why they went out and they drafted Byron Young. It shows you why they went out and drafted Nesta Jade Silvera with 2 out of their 9 picks that they had. So now you have the Raiders, and according to a source, they expect Farrell to be the starting nose tackle next to Bilal Nichols. So you go from a player where a week, 3 weeks ago, probably 3 weeks ago, we were talking about a guy like, I don't know, he's going to be more than likely making the 53-man roster, but how big of an impact is he going to make? I'm not necessarily sure. I talked to a few Raiders players. I talked to a few people inside of the building about the defensive tackle position over the weekend, and I have totally changed my Raiders depth chart. Like, it looks completely different. Go back a week ago and look at what I thought it could potentially be. This is what you're probably looking at right now for the Raiders' interior defensive line. So my question of the nation out there is this. Will Neil Farrell Jr. start for the Silver and Black this season? Give me a yes, or if you don't think that that's going to be the case, you can type your N for no. And I get it. There's some different scenarios out there that you're always going to see. Coaches sometimes just like guys to get certain work in and out. But I saw this report, and from what I heard from certain players, it made me feel really good about Neil Farrell Jr. So if the season were to start today, you woke up randomly, week 1, Raiders against the Broncos, I really truly believe that it would be Neil Farrell Jr. as your starting nose tackle for the Silver and Black. Coming up here also on the show, since we're talking about defensive tackles, other players that have been impressive this offseason, and players that have been getting a lot of notoriety from coaches. Byron Young apparently is like really opening up some eyes of some coaching staffs out there, and Byron Young could be a big reason why they don't end up keeping Matthew Butler. I'm telling you all that right now. Another player who's apparently looked very good this offseason and is going to be getting some work at the nose tackle position this upcoming season. Nesta Jade Silvera, the 7th rounder out of Arizona State. He's played football with different programs. The U has been one, but another guy where there were some question marks around him. Sounds like he's putting in the work and really opening up some eyes so far for this season. Coming up next here on the Raiders Report, find out which defender is wearing the green dot on the helmet. If you don't know what the green dot is, essentially think of them as the quarterback of the defense. Originally, it was reported that it was going to be Robert Spillane when the Raiders signed him to a 2-year, $9 million deal. He played with the Pittsburgh Steelers last season. Well, guess what? If anybody out there loves themselves some double Ds, well, you know what I'm talking about, Divine Deablo, then give yourself a round of applause because this is very big news for Mr. Double D. He's been wearing the green dot for the Raiders defense this entire offseason. It was expected, like I mentioned, to be Spillane. And according to McDaniels and according to a source, he's looked much, much better in coverage. When the Raiders drafted Divine Deablo just 2 seasons ago out of Virginia Tech in the 3rd round, he was a strong safety. They wanted him to be this strong safety linebacker hybrid, and I always make the joke, it seems like no matter which Raiders regime has been here, they've been looking for that safety linebacker hybrid, whether that be a Tanner Muse, and now it's Divine Deablo. It sounds like it's finally starting to click, and a lot of times when you think about that 3rd year, the 3rd year is usually when a player can start to put it together a little bit, and as a rookie, he's playing in a Gus Bradley defense. In the 2nd year, he's in Patrick Graham's defense. It probably is like, oh shit, this is the exact same defense that I learned, and it's easier to pick up here a little bit. So McDaniels, I would say the biggest winner from today from mandatory minicamp was Divine Deablo because McDaniels, this is going to sound weird, couldn't keep him out of his mouth. He was hyping up this dude today, saying his intelligence, his instinct for situational football was off the charts, and that they expect Deablo to wear the green dot all season. Hell, when asked today about wearing the green dot, Deablo made a joke. He was like, man, I was a quarterback when I was growing up, so it's kind of cool to be the quarterback on defense again. He said he got all the way up to 238 pounds, but felt like he was too slow at 238, so now he's back down to 234. Last season, Deablo played at 226 pounds. He got injured. He had 74 tackles before that injury and really struggled in coverage. I'm telling y'all right now, if Deablo can still be the run stopper that he's been in his career thus far in the NFL, and then on top of that, he finally puts it together. The light bulb finally goes off, and he starts to fit well in defense. The hype around Deablo could be a big-time reason why the Raiders have, maybe not gone out and pursued a lot of other linebackers, whether that be free agents here, whether that be in the draft. And honestly, man, Divine's not the only player that's been turning some heads at camp. Today, Josh McDaniels, the one player that he spoke very highly of, was UDFA from NC State, Drake Thomas. Talked about how hardworking he is and how he's loves football and just... I was going to say a grit and grinder, but just, an absolute grinder out there. So Drake Thomas, one of the players that I gave the highest grades to for my UDFAs, an A+, second behind only McClendon Curtis, he's showing up. Another player that's been getting a lot of buzz this offseason, Darian Butler. And, Butler's another very intriguing prospect because Butler, great relationship with Raiders linebacking coach Antonio Pierce together at Arizona State, and it's also his 2nd season in the Patrick Graham system. So when I hear a lot of upside from a lot of these other Raiders linebackers, I will admit it's very, very good, but it does make me wonder, is Robert Spillane struggling a little bit? Because this is the type of this time of the year where everybody's in the best shape of their life, everybody looks great, and usually when you don't hear about somebody, it's usually not the best thing. So I am curious of what's going on here with Robert Spillane, but it is the offseason after all. I like hearing about a lot of this stuff because, Let's face it, right? I don't do this show to be an angry Raider fan. I do this show to smile, have a good time, interact with the nation, and hopefully these reports end up being true, and that leads to more Raiders wins this upcoming season. But I was talking to a Raiders player over the weekend, and they said that the defense looks like, they're starting to understand it. They're starting to be able to put it together. You saw even at the end of last season a little bit. The Raiders defense played pretty damn well up until week 17, up until week 18, until all those injuries hit. The Raiders, for a 6-week stretch, so whenever the hell that is, week 10 to week 16, they were the second best defense, points per game allowed, minus only the San Francisco 49ers. They were allowing 18.3 points per game, and then all the injuries happened. It was just like all the players, they lost a lot of depth. So I think it's one of the reasons why the Raiders have done a good job building some depth here. Still a lot of unknown pieces, but going into year 2 of the Patrick Graham system, a very prominent Raiders player told me it looks like the team is starting to get it. Coming up next here on the show, this is how we're going to wrap up today's mandatory minicamp news and rumors. Some offensive linemen that have been impressing the coaching staff. I know Chugs is laughing at me. That one just didn't come out right. Maybe I already got wings on the mind. I don't know exactly what it is. But I got 4 names that I do think a lot of y'all are going to be like, okay, it's good to know about that with the Raiders offensive line. If you don't know, this Saturday, Barcode Burgers in Las Vegas, me against Jermaine Illuminor. Word on the street is Jermaine's starting to get a little bit nervous. So if you're around in Las Vegas, noon to 3 p.m., the charity, it's an awesome event. All the proceeds that we get will go to that. And my cousin Tori, who is a big fan favorite, she's going to be there. So she's gonna pull up. Hopefully she wears more this time. All I know is this, though. Whether it's NFL players there, Raiders players there, I want y'all to pack the house. Let's have a good time. My question is, who you got? Me or Jermaine Illuminor? Who is going to win the competitive hot wings contest? The real ones will bet on me, like Isaac Hernandez. I see you and I appreciate you, but they're going to look at him and they're going to be like, all right, this guy's clearly going to beat Mitch. All I'm going to say is this. I'm going to give you the best 10 minutes giggity that I've ever given. Let's continue to look here at the Raiders' offensive line because Jermaine, he's going down. And I want you to really study the amount of names that are on here because the Raiders' offensive line room is actually a lot deeper than what it gets credit for. But when you have a great offensive line coach like Carmen Brasillo, and then you have a lot of versatility here, I do think it's pretty interesting. Last week on the Raiders Report, I did a mailbag, and somebody asked me a question about who do you think is an offensive lineman that could potentially be traded? The name that I brought up was Brandon Parker, and usually at this part of the offseason, if coaches want to try to move on from players, they randomly will be like, this guy's having a really good camp. And I'm not saying that he's not. The reports are that Brandon Parker does look pretty good, but I've been doing this thing now for 5 years. When a name like Brandon Parker starts getting hyped in the offseason, it makes me wonder, are they trying to trade him or are they going to cut him because they're trying to get some trade interest on the guy? Another player that this is the second week in a row I've been told by a source, and I didn't talk about it last week, but Thayer Munford, another player that's been getting a lot of hype in. I'll tell you this right now, it wouldn't surprise me, a dark horse sleeper to get some potential starts at right guard could potentially be Thayer Munford, a player that they drafted in round 7 last year, a player that got some snaps here and there. Sure, he had some growing pains, but if he would have been drafted in 2021, there were some people that thought he could have been a first or a second round pick coming out of Ohio State. Another player that continues to get hype is Dylan Parham. I am confident that if the Raiders wanted, they could literally play this guy at any position on the football field in a pinch. Like, if Colton Miller went down, you could put Parham out at left tackle. It wouldn't be plan A, probably like plan C, a lot of injuries, but he has the ability to do it. If anything, I'm just hyping up this guy. He put on some good weight. I am intrigued to see what that good weight means because to me, he is a left guard, a right guard, or a center for this Raiders offensive line. Another report that came out today was that if the season started today, Netane Moody would be the Raiders' right guard. Talked about it a little bit last week. We also talked about it because Raider Scout on Instagram said that this is the report, that Netane Moody would be the starting right guard. However, I don't 100% agree with it. I do think that he's going to end up being a depth player. What I do think the Raiders are trying to do right now is if you hop back into that time machine and remember last offseason where Lester Cotton was getting all of the first team work. It was like Lester Cotton this, he's the starting right guard during practice. What I know that this Raiders regime likes to do is just put guys out there in certain situations, see how they handle it, but that does not necessarily mean that that's the guy. If you hear reports that this player is running with the first team, it's sometimes what this Raiders organization likes to do, / this new coaching staff likes to do, to see how those players fit with some of the starters out there. So Netane Moody, starting at right guard, we're going to have to see about that. But that is all the time we have for today for our latest news and rumors around the Silver and Black. Remember, if you want to stay up to date on everything going on around the Las Vegas Raiders, make sure you hit that subscribe button.